What is happening, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast. This should be a good one because we're reviewing the draw against Fulham, but previewing Bournemouth and what is a busy upcoming week. And I'm joined by a fantastic panel, which is going to make it a special show, even if Spurs don't turn up. Firstly, James Black, it's an honour to have you back on. How you been doing?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, well, apart from the weekend, man. But yeah, really good.
It's good to hear. Great to have you back.
But overall, okay.
Yeah, great to listen to your gig perform. Because obviously, if people don't know you perform pre and post match, regardless of the result, right?
Yeah. It's tough. Post match, I don't really do like a sing along. Post match, a bit more pulled back and sort of backgroundy stuff because some people just want to leave, you know. But yeah, pre match was fun, man. Was you there?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Do you find it like harder though, like post match when the result hasn't gone our way, particularly maybe in a bigger game or London derby? Is it hard in terms of numbers and to get the noise you find?
Yeah. Well, I'm not really like seeing myself as a musician. I'm a Spurs fan with a guitar. So when we don't win, I just want to go home and sulk, man. I don't want to be sitting on that stool. Do you know what I mean? It's like the hardest gig in the world. And you kind of feel for everybody drifting out, and you feel for everyone there, but you're gutted. So yeah, it becomes the hardest thing. But we're contracted, you know, so you got to do something. So we just kind of played to the mood that's in front of us, which is often very much like very somber, and so it should be after that sort of performance, especially against Fulham. Can't put a finger on that.
No, not gonna. We'll get into it, but no, thank you very much for coming on this evening. I really appreciate the work that you do for the Spurs community, and it's obviously a big part for me anyway of a match day experience. I really enjoy it, so thank you for that. James, welcome him also onto the show. Billie T, regular. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Yeah, trying not to let Spurs bring you down these days, innit? But yeah, all right, thank you, mate. A bit of a disappointing result, but the games are coming thick and fast, and that's what I hate is when we lose right before an international break. Then you've got 2 weeks to dwell on it, but the games are coming every few days at the moment, so on to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely, they certainly are. That's one of the positives, isn't it, of the festive period? Non-stop games, 2-3 games a week. So yeah, absolutely do share that with you. Also, welcoming onto the podcast, I think for the first time of the season, certainly for a while anyway, is Josh Hughes. So thank you very much, Josh, for joining us. Tell people a bit about what you do, and I hope you've been keeping well as well.
Well, I used to be a sports journalist, used to work at Mail Sport for 2 years, had a bit of a stint at Sky Sports News as well, taken a step back from that to pursue other interests. And one of the things I would say is nice is the fact that I feel like I can enjoy the game as a fan again. You know, it used to be the case that you'd watch every minute of every game in every competition pretty much that I could possibly watch. And you're constantly looking out for things. Oh, we need to look at this. We need to look at that. You know, to be able to just step back and enjoy it as a fan again is nice. Although typically it's Tottenham. So it's always up and down, regardless of what's going on. But yeah, I kind of echo what everyone else is saying. You know, it's good that there are games coming thick and fast. You know, I was not happy at all. I'm in a group chat with James, and he knows. After a defeat, I can be a little bit. I kind of sort of verbal diarrhea about all my thoughts about every little thing. I've calmed down a little bit now.
Normally bang on though, mate.
No, well, this is it. It's been a busy season, but I guess as far as I'm concerned, it's not been a good start, but we're only 2 results away from being, you know, where Chelsea and Arsenal are in second. So, you know, all it takes is having a good rest of the week, win against Bournemouth, win at home to Chelsea, and suddenly things could look very different for us. But it still doesn't change the fact that Spurs, at every opportunity, managed to ruin everyone's week all too often in a season. But, you know, we love the club anyway.
Yeah, we do nonetheless, though. Thank you very much all for joining me this evening. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It's free to do so. It does help the channel and the podcast grow, so that'd be massively appreciated. We can provide you with Spurs, Premier League and England content. Of course, the biggest being here, the Scarfey Spurs Talk weekly podcast. Obviously, do, as I said, that Premier League and England content. If you aren't a Spurs fan or a Spurs fan looking for more content, and do follow us across all socials as well as the guys here. But if you are listening on audio, podcast platforms such as Spotify, Amazon Music, or Apple Music. Don't forget to drop us a follow and a 5-star review as well. But what I want to start with tonight is third round draw, because just before coming on live, we were drawn. The FA Cup third round draw was conducted, if you like, and we will play Tamworth away in the FA Cup third round. All the third round ties will be played over the weekend of January the 11th, 2025. That feels strange to say, 2025. Got to get our head around it because we're into December now. James, your reaction to this draw?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess the slight Spurs of me sort of still sees it as like probably a tough ground to play at. Will he play like the kids, which means you won't get a good result and get our pants pulled down on BBC One or something? But there's a bit of that in me. But no, it's good. I mean, let's face it, it's Tamworth. We should be turning them over quite easily. But I wonder if they'll switch it to a Spurs Stadium home gig for the payday. I don't really know. I don't know. Was it hold 4,000 or 5,000 or something? But yeah, maybe they'll switch it around for like a payday. I don't know what the manager has said, if they've spoken to anybody yet, anybody said anything. But you got to be happy with it, haven't you? You got to be happy with it. But again, you wouldn't be Spurs if there's not something in the back of your head going, oh God, I hope that don't happen. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, happy with it. I'm seeing that there's a few other tasty ties, and we sort of avoided all that. So yeah, I'll be happy with Tamworth away, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll certainly some tasty ties, as you say. Josh, what's your reaction to this kind of draw? Do you have that element, that James kind of has in terms of we should go over the line, we should be winning this, but it's Spurs, you just don't quite know, with the team that we put out, maybe?
No, I've said it to a couple of people in jest, but the reality is, I don't think anything else but a Spurs win against Tamworth. To be honest, I think the manager came out and he kind of hinted that it's going to be an awfully tough game. I don't think anyone will really give them a chance. I don't think Tamworth fans will even give their side a chance. But what an opportunity for those players playing in the National League to play top Premier League opposition at their place at the Lamb Ground. I think it's about 4,900, just over 4,900. And they'll be standing. It's not all seated. And so the Tamworth manager, I think, came out and said that he wanted a home tie. So I think, to be honest, it's one of those that they could probably bring 9,000 to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and make a lot more money. But, like James said, there is always that what if moment. And yeah, someone said in the comments, no longer an option to switch grounds. I know last season it was still possible if both teams agreed. But, I think for them, it's at home, there's always a chance. It's the magic of the cup. That's why it's for me, the greatest cup competition in football, in club football, because it just throws up so much surprise. And, ultimately, I think we deserved it as well after getting Man City last year and Man City in the Carabao Cup as well. I think we absolutely deserved a tie like this, kind of shades of Marine, although I think these are a little bit higher level than Marine. What I would also say is it's nice that the other team down the road got Man United at home, which is always a bonus. Two big teams going against each other should clear the path a little bit. So, yeah, I think it's the best possible start if we're going to have dreams of lifting that FA Cup at the end of the season.
Yeah, fingers crossed, Josh. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, you mentioned there, just looking at other draws here, Arsenal due to take on Man United in the third round. Arsenal at home for that one, hosting Ruben Amorim's now Manchester United. New team, new era there. Also a dream tie for Salford City. They take on Man City at the Etihad. But Billy, I'll move on to you with your thoughts on the draw, because I'm just looking here, the lowest ranked side left in the competition at the time of the draw. Do you think, feeling confident surely that, even we can't find a way to make this difficult, shall I say?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not really worried about this one. It's just, this is what I like the FA Cup for, you know what I mean? It's like a chance to do something like for these players and that community. It'll be like the biggest game of their lives. I think that's a pretty special thing, really, that we get to be part of. Same as happening, as Josh said, with Marine, that I think my dad and my brother and me, we all got, you could pay for like a special part of the ticket or something, even though it was in COVID and stuff. And yeah, it'd be really good for the community. And I think that's what the FA Cup's all about, to be honest. It's always good for me as well, because it was on my birthday weekend. We played Marine on my birthday. My birthday's on the 10th, so it'll probably be the day before. But I really look forward to it.
Nice.
And I think we seem to get done over in the draw so much lately. Like we get City in the last two cups, Carabao Cup, FA Cup. So it's good to get like as literally the easiest possible draw. He says, with crossed fingers. But let's hope. For me, this is what the FA Cup is all about. A Premier League team playing an absolute sort of non-league team. I don't even know what league they're in, to be honest. That's pretty ignorant of me. But wherever they're from, it should be a really good day.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But yeah, it should really be. And, you've all kind of touched on it. It is as well. What's nice about the FA Cup, we help them. They have a great time. We hopefully progress as well. So I think it's positives all round. Well,
in our quite recent history, drew with Newport, didn't we? I think, and we lost to Colchester. So, you never know. You never know with this.
No, they just had a look here. They're National League. I wasn't sure if they were what tier, but it looks like I'm not sure what tier National League, but they are National League. We'll move on to Fulham. That is our live reaction to the FA Cup third round draw. So if you are listening live on YouTube, do get involved in the comments below because it's fairly recent. But Fulham, I want to move on to our starting 11 before the game first, because we started with Fraser Forster in goal, backline of Porro, Dragusin, Davies and Udogie, and midfielder Basuma Sarr, Maddison. It was up for debate, I think, among Spurs fans before the game. And a front three, surprisingly, of Werner, Johnson and Son. Solanke missed the game last minute due to illness. It was a last-minute decision, according to Ange. Substitutes. This is where it gets interesting for me. Brandon Austin, Reguilon, Spence, Gray, Bergevall, Elise, Kulusevski, Williams, Barnett, and Lancashire. So that means, heading into this game, missing from the squad are Vicario, Van der Ven, Romero, Solanke, Odegaard, Moore, Richarlison, Bentancur. James, I'll start with you. I mean, we've been hit by injuries, haven't we, really, all of a sudden, but also your thoughts on the lineup.
Yeah, we have been hit with injuries, and I'd imagine, the biggest one was that Solanke. That was a surprise, and he's got he said he found out once they got to the ground. So that's a big change. Maybe was he going to throw Lancashire in for his Premier League debut? We had basically suddenly had no striker up there. And then to have Kulusevski not in the starting 11 as well, that's quite incredible, really, to be honest. And suddenly, I was concerned a little bit then anyway, because Fulham are no pushovers. But having said that, we've got to be putting these teams away. If we're going for this top four, and we're going for at least top four, but it's Fulham at home. We've got to be starting putting these teams away, really. So, yeah, the lineup did shock me. I was quite surprised. Same with you with the bench as well. The bench was a bit suddenly very weak, wasn't it? 7 or 8 out. I mean, we knew a few of them were going to be out, obviously, but adding Solanke into that mix, and I thought Lancashire should have come on earlier. I thought we should have a point of preference up front, really. Kula must be tiredness, because we're playing every 2 or 3 days. He really has got. He does a lot of running, doesn't he? But yeah, I was quite wary when I saw that lineup, because I know Fulham are pretty. There've been no pushovers this season. They've had a good season, to be honest. But this is Fulham at home, and we should be picking up in 3 points. That is a bad result, and not only the bad result. I mean, I could back it when we had bad results with good performances, but that performance was just well below par.
Absolutely. And as a Fulham fan in Barney says in the comments, Fulham's bench was a lot stronger compared to ours. So, Billy, I'll ask you about the bench. Because, see, I think there's no secret or any way to, of avoiding it. We are in an injury crisis, aren't we? Do you think we could have done more now looking back in the summer, considering what the bench now looks like? And, with I in particular think defensive positions, maybe you see like Van der Ven out, all of a sudden we're struggling to put a team on the pitch and list the bench. Those 2 goalkeepers we've seen, for example, against Roma. So could we have done more in the summer, looking back?
100%. And, we could have had this conversation every year for the past 10, 15 years, mate. It's always the same, really. And that's the point that's been hammered home by the Fulham game for me is we're in a very similar position to what we're always in about this time of season, The funny thing is, for me, that exactly the same thing happened last season. You would think we would learn our lesson, but we didn't. This time last year, November, Van der Ven, Romero both got injured. Romero got sent off. Our season completely derailed. We bought Dragusin in January, which is a good signing, but we don't have any backup on the left centre back at all, which we had a chance to address in summer. It's completely cost us again. Udogie and Porro, we've absolutely ran into the ground. We didn't buy any fullbacks in summer either. renewed Spence, not giving him any sort of games at all. It's baffling, mate. But it's the same thing over and over again. If you don't have a squad depth and you're playing in 2 competitions, 3 competitions, 4 competitions, it's going to hurt you. And it hurt us last season, and we were in 1 competition, so it's hurt us this season again badly.
Yeah, it definitely has. Thank you, Billy. Josh, I mean, James mentioned it there about Kulusevski and being on the bench. Was that a surprise to you that he didn't start?
Yes, in the grand scheme of things, especially given the injuries and Solanke having illness just before the game. But I think Ange alluded to it in the press conference beforehand about having to manage his minutes because he's covered more ground than anyone else in the league. He's essentially, in layman's terms, the hardest working player in the Premier League, statistically. So that was always going to come back to bite us at some point when we're playing games in lots of competitions every 3 days, pretty much. And, we also weren't helped by the fact that we had probably on paper the toughest game, at least in my view, the toughest game of the Europa League group stage in Roma, in between City and today. I don't think that helped as well. But ultimately, the big surprise for me was that Lancashire didn't start. And I know that might sound surprising, but the guy started at Galatasaray, which is an incredibly tough game. He scored in that game. He's shown that he can play against top-level opposition. This would have been a great opportunity for Ange to put his arm around him and say, I trust you. This is an opportunity, please go and take it. I was really disappointed that we didn't give him that opportunity because we know that Son's not good as a striker. And we know that he's also been struggling on the wing as well. And I'm not going to criticize it all too much because actually it turns out that the player that does end up playing in place of someone like Lancashire was actually Timo Werner, who comes into the side. And for me, again, that was another baffling part of the game. He was, in my opinion, our best attacking player quite comfortably yesterday. And yet Ange took him off when really it could have been Johnson or Son. And I know Johnson scored, but let's be real, he was incredibly poor. Except for that one moment where, he does what he does best, which is make that good run and finish inside the box. So, yeah, I mean, it was surprising about Kulusevski. We are really threadbare at the minute. But, just kind of going back to something, that's been mentioned already, which is the situation around Jed Spence. Another one that I want to mention is Sergio Reguilon, who was on the bench for the first time this season. Whatever problem Ange Postecoglou has with Sergio Reguilon, they need to grow up and get over it because we are absolutely threadbare right now. And no one will convince me ever that playing Archie Gray at left back against Roma instead of Sergio Reguilon, who was excellent at Brentford and who actually did a pretty good job at Man United when he was there as well. Gray is definitely not a better option than Reguilon. I completely agree with the point about running the fullbacks into the ground. Jed Spence could have been starting against Roma. There's no reason why he couldn't have, or even yesterday. And the Europa League could have been an opportunity to give, include both of them in the squad, get Reguilon some minutes, so that he could potentially play. Because actually, Udogie's been rotated quite a lot this season because of his injuries and what have you. So as much as some of it is definitely down to injuries, I'm not dismissing the fact that we've got the most injuries in the league, and we've also got the additional suspension of Bentancur as well to make matters worse. But there are things that could have been done to better prepare some of these players for minutes and better prepare us as a squad, I think. And Reguilon, Spence, and actually Lancashire are 3 examples of that. I would have really liked to see him start yesterday. And I thought the decision to bring him on, so late, especially after the red card. I mean, he should have been straight on when the red card happened. We should have been saying, right, we're going to go for this game. But instead, no, we don't do that. To be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed with how, the squad's been managed and how, we managed some of these games. But equally, I completely understand how difficult it is, playing games every 3 days, especially with European competition. And, I must say, Barney is completely right in what he's been saying about Fulham. And actually, let's be real. I think Fulham were actually really unlucky not to win the game. I think if there was a team that did deserve to win, it wasn't us. So yeah, I think hopefully some lessons will be learnt now, because we cannot afford to make any more mistakes going forward, especially with a tough game like Bournemouth coming up, who are no pushovers as well. And then Chelsea, obviously a massive game at home, which, I don't think fans will accept another defeat to Chelsea.
I don't think they certainly will at all. So, no, thank you very much, Josh. I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of things there, which are really interesting. You highlight issues around rotation, there for me not being enough. That you talked about Spence, Lancashire for me, those who I would have brought on in the game at the weekend, because I just think that Porro was being targeted all game by Nelson, who had the better of him that first hour, whatever it was, 63 minutes is on the pitch. That's clear to see. So for me, I would have probably changed it at half time. And then absolutely Lancashire, not to start, but then to come on ridiculously late to have no impact. So I think you are spot on. But moving on to the game itself, Son had a big chance really early on. It was 1-on-1 with Leno. And from the side of the stadium that I was, in the upper shelf, we actually thought it went in. And it was quite a big group of us that were convinced it went in, because we saw Son 1-on-1 with the keeper. We didn't see Leno get a foot to it. And we saw Son move towards the direction of where the empty goal was. We just assumed it went in, and we just confusion what happened. And when I saw it back later, and it turned out good save by Leno. But Billy, I mean, he's got to do better there, hasn't he, Son, really?
Yeah, and I think that's been a little bit of the Son story this season. Historically, he's in terms of statistics, he's the best finisher the Premier League has ever seen in terms of overperforming XG. You got to be burying that chance, every time when you're Son. I'm afraid there's no excuses. And as Josh mentioned earlier, I thought it was actually a really decent ball in by Werner as well. Really smart play. I think Werner, as Josh said, had a pretty decent game. He's unlucky not to get another assist there. He should really have had 2 assists. But if that goes in, we're probably looking on this podcast on a completely different story. Probably run to a riot, because once we get our confidence up, we're very hard to stop. But I think that miss sort of set the tone for the rest of the game. I thought we were really poor, and I definitely think Fulham are the better team.
Yeah, 100%. James, he's got to do better, hasn't he, there, Son? But does some credit go with Leno for the save?
No, I'm with Billy, to be honest. I think he's got to do better. Like, it's Sonny at the end of the day. He's clinical. He's dropped off a little bit this season, as we've all seen. But 1-on-1 with a goalkeeper with the chances that he's been taking, I've only seen him ever miss one. Well, remember one big one was against Man City that he did that, didn't he, with a 1-on-1 last season. But yeah, he should be putting that away. I can't believe he's missed that. If that was Werner, for example, we'd be going mentally at him for missing that. So yeah, and the other thing I agree with is it did set the tone for the whole game. It really did. It was like that for us. It was a case of a missed opportunity for the whole game, really.
Yeah, thank you very much. Josh, you've previously on the podcast talked a lot about Son. How do you feel, having Son with that chance, and just generally on his start to the season? Do you, with James, that maybe he's gone off the boil a little bit at the start of the season? Can he rediscover that form as we go into 2025 and before that actually go into a really busy festive period, which we're now, I think, already feeling the burden of?
I think people are not going to like what I'm going to say, because I absolutely adore him and he's a club legend, but I do think his days are numbered, if we're being real. If we're being really honest with ourselves, as much as we all adore Son, it comes a point where natural, with age and with the amount of minutes he's played in all competitions, the fact that, he plays pretty much every minute for South Korea, going far and wide in Asia, which is, for anyone that has travelled long haul, it's not easy at all. That his performances are suffering. And I know he's had some problems with fitness and problems with injury. As far as I'm concerned, I think Son has a vital role to play in this squad still. But, I would be looking to now try and get someone that can be his long-term successor, not someone that can sit on the bench and in 2027 might be good enough to take his place, but someone that actually is probably better than him right now and gives Son either that bit of extra fight, needs to fight for his place a little bit, or allows us to manage the minutes a bit better. I still think he can have an amazing impact, but, there is something clearly not right with him at the minute, and I can't quite put my finger on what that is, other than the fact that it seems like he's lost a yard of pace. There are times where he would take on his man, but he's not doing it anymore, or he's tripping over the ball. It's just not quite clicking, and I'm really disappointed by that, because I think on his day he's still one of the best players in the league. He's certainly one of the top finishers in the league. And I kind of echo the point on the chance, because having missed an absolutely golden chance against Roma, where the goal was practically an open goal that he blazed over, and we were talking about the sort of recurring theme of missing chances. I mean, we had that game at City where we put absolutely everything away, and we were really clinical. Ange's alluded to that as well, but against Roma, I thought we were really wasteful. And I did think when Son, received the ball from Werner, who I thought, did very well to anticipate that and capitalize on it, you're thinking, surely not again. He's got to bury this. I think you put your house on it. You put all your possessions on Son scoring that chance, even having missed a chance, a massive chance the game before. But, as much as I think Leno did the best he possibly could there, he didn't have an awful lot to do with it. It was a very tame effort. It was kind of right at him, and those are the moments where I think we all miss Harry Kane, because Harry Kane is lashing that into the roof of the net. And perhaps we were all spoiled for the years that we did have Harry Kane, because it's so clear to see that is exactly what we miss in that front line is someone that is going to put those chances away time and time again. I'm sure come the Bournemouth game, I'm going to look really stupid, and Son might end up scoring 2 or 3 goals and looking back to his best again. But unfortunately, I think Son kind of epitomizes where we are as a team at the minute, that sort of inconsistency of performance. It's not for lack of trying, but things aren't quite clicking at the minute. I really hope he can turn it around, but I think we do need to be real at the same time and, realise that we can't expect him to keep playing at the highest level forever. The guy is 32, going on 33. He's as a forward and someone that relies on his pace and his dribbling ability. You can't rely on players to maintain such high levels, when they get, to that age and beyond. So, I think we need to be a little bit real about the situation that we face, going forward, and whether it's in January or this, we need to act.
That's interesting. Thank you, Josh. David Clark, who's a loyal listener, comes in pretty much every week. So thank you, David, for your continued support with the shows. And I want to get his thoughts. He says in the comments, if Spurs actually had a squad that was a genuine title contender, Son would no longer be here. It's only that most of our front players are inferior to Son, is the only thing saving his career at Spurs. I mean, wherever you stand with Son, I think you have to agree with that to an extent in terms of maybe our attack in general, in terms of options I think we've got off the bench. Is it good enough? I think Brennan's doing really well at the moment. I think Werner's hit a good run of form. I think Solanke will come good. I think his all-round game's really good at the moment. But off the bench, I think we certainly could have done more to strengthen. So appreciate David for getting involved. But I want to move on to the next thing that happened in the first half, and that was Jimenez. Had a close-up shot, saved spectacularly by Forster, got low down to, I think it's his right-hand side. I mean, Billy, that was a superb save from Forster, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I thought, he was funny enough, he was our biggest concern going into this run of games, but he's actually come out of all right against Roma and decent against Fulham. But, fair play to him. He was a player that stood up at least. I think the biggest disappointment has just been our lack of squad depth. Fair play to him. It's a really good save.
Yeah, absolutely. James, he also went on to save a Iwobi shot, which he tipped onto the bar. I mean, that was an even better save, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, for me, he was actually our man of the match from Spurs. For me, I think he was that good. He was the only one who sort of stood up and did something. Yeah, I thought it was great. But yeah, I was concerned about him in the lineup, as I have been for every game. But he's and I'm thinking we need to go in January and get someone and replace. And I still would like to see that, to be honest. Yeah, but yeah, he seems to be playing. I'm still a little bit worried about him with the ball at his feet, but shot stopping and crossing, he seems to be getting quite a bit better at. And for me, he was our best player against Fulham.
Yeah. So David said, Forster saves proves that trees too have roots. I do love that.
He made quite a few, really. It wasn't just those ones. He made quite a few of really good saves. And that one just before they against Roma, when he just thought he equalised, that was an incredible save that he did then, just before their 2-2 goal. Hummels, whatever his name is. But yeah, I think he's been brilliant in both games, really. I say brilliant. He's exceeded expectations in both games, I think. That's the fair thing for me to say on that.
Yeah, 100%. Josh, do you feel the same? The Force has done better than expected in January again. We already talked about, kind of summer window, what more we can do. Do we need a goalkeeper? Ange says we don't sign a free agent, suggesting we won't, certainly won't be a priority going into the window.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what happens with Luca Gunter and Josh Keeley, who obviously scored that incredible header for Leyton Orient at the weekend against.
We talk about Harry Kane, Josh. Harry Kane would have been proud of that, wouldn't he?
I know, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Look, I think we do. We definitely do need another goalkeeper. I can't even speak now. Goalkeeper. I think in an ideal world, Forster plays that sort of what I call the sort of Scott Carson, that experienced third choice keeper that is there and ready when needed. I can't fault his performance against Roma or against Fulham. And, let's not forget, this is a guy that's played Champions League football. This is a guy that's played a lot of games in the Premier League and at the very highest level. I think as David's joke, alludes to, perhaps there's a fear about his speed and how long it takes for him to get up. But actually, I think he's proved those doubts wrong. He's been very agile, in fact. And the save from the Iwobi shot in particular was magnificent. I've watched that back a few times, and he also provides a great deal of experience in what is a young squad. So I think it's good to have people around that. But I agree. I think he was the man of the match yesterday for sure.
Yeah, 100%. A couple of people saying that in the chat as well. So yeah, I think he's done really well. Josh, I'll stay with you. Maddison free kick just before half time. Here's the post. He tries to go under the wall. Fulham not really well prepared for that. It's my only criticism of Fulham yesterday. They've done well, but that could have been their undoing. I mean, unlucky, wasn't he, really? No,
absolutely. I mean, that's where I sit is right in front of that goal. So I had a great view of it, and I thought it was a great bit of invention from Maddison to give it a go. Of course, after that, Fulham, when we had free kicks, put the man lying down behind the wall to stop it from happening. It was very unlucky, just dragged the shot a little bit. Again, if that goes in, we're probably having a different conversation today. So, although I must say, I thought Maddison was terrible yesterday. He was back to his usual self of not performing well enough. He just, most things he did were poor yesterday. So, if that had gone in, it would have been at least a bit of a silver lining in everything. But yeah, hopefully he can get back to his best soon.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Thank you very much. James, how do you think Maddison played? I didn't really pick up on many positives or negative things he'd done in that game. There's a few that I did, but Maddison wasn't one of them. So what did you make of his performance?
I think that he was so good, wasn't he, against Manchester City? I think the top players, they perform week in, week out. And in a game like this, they should be taken by the scruff of the neck. We're at home and turning that round. He's the experienced player now, you see. And for me, yeah, I'm same as Josh. I think he went a bit missing yet again. And the story and the theme for Tottenham yet again is the consistency and the momentum after smashing the champions 4-0 and then go and put in a performance like that. Yeah, and he was definitely one of the ones to blame for me, really. Like these, when you're not performing like this, it should be your Maddisons, your Sons. I know Kulusevski wasn't on the pitch, but even Fraser Forster grabbing these players and giving them a shake. There's some footage that went around that soon after Fulham's equaliser, they're all just sort of head down, just dragging their feet to the. That for me, that's basic. That is disgraceful for me. That's basic behaviour of like, where's the fire? Where's the fight? Where's the want? We're at home. And for me, Maddison is one of them experienced players who has to be grabbing these players together and getting fired up. And yet again, when they went down to 10 men, do it again. They're down to 10 men. Yes, you're right, bring Lancashire on, but that fire for me, that was missing. And without Romero in the team, it should be down to Maddison to be grabbing these players and getting that stuff. But Romero hasn't been the same with that this season for me either. For me,
could I just jump in on that? I just, I think that you hit the nail on the head. He's the vice captain of this team. Yeah. Without Rosario there, who always G's players up, Porro looked so knackered and running to the ground that I don't even think he had the energy to put his hands in the air.
Did you see him? He was doing? Did you see his bodily behaviour going back to?
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think it was the video from my mate Johnny, who filmed it in the stands. He films everything.
But that's bang on, isn't it?
It summed it up perfectly. But actually, that's a really good point because I actually thought Sarr didn't play badly at all. I thought he was quite good yesterday. But both him and Basuma, Maddison and Basuma, I think typified what was wrong with the Spurs team yesterday. And I must admit, and we haven't spoken about him amongst the Fulham players, and I've not seen Barney comment on them yet, but I was really impressed with Sander Berge and with Sasha Lukic as well, who I think are both very, very impressive midfielders. Lukic in particular has really, really stepped it up this season from the stuff I saw from him last year. So, I think that was also a really key thing that dictated the sort of tempo and the momentum of the game, was the fact that actually Fulham really dominated the middle of the park. And that was down to Lukic and Sander Berge, who, as he says, I think that's the perfect word for them. Solid, really solid. They dominated. And those are the moments, like James says, where Maddison needs to be dictating the whole game. He needs to be, taking the game by the scruff of the neck, exactly as he said.
Where's the leaders at that point? That's where it really shows.
He should be getting on the ball at every single moment, and Basuma as well, I think, was a problem. He was far too relaxed. And there were times, especially when they went down to 10 men, where you think, come on, let's step it up now, and they just didn't do it.
It's something that doesn't go away, does it? The whole leadership conversation. I think Maddison is just so inconsistent. I actually think he's a good leader. But I think when his head's down, he's not. Romero, I think the idea is good. But for me, if you look at a lot of goals where he's out of position, whether it be with the line or just generally not marking, or there's a goal defensively that his fault, if often because he's telling someone else what to do, you can interpret that two ways. He's doing his job from that point of view. But I look at it going that he's maybe getting too distracted from that and actually forgetting the basics, such as marking, etc. He's been caught out of position so many times this year. So I think that's the issue that does keep coming back. Billy, I'll come to you because half-time, it was 0-0, no goals in that first half. What were your thoughts on the first half overall? We've already talked about kind of, lacking that clinical edge. Are you under that impression as well, that we just at the moment, like against Roma as well, we just don't take our chances at the minute?
Yeah, lackluster, completely lackluster, especially without Solanke, who, if he's not scoring, he's making things happen. We didn't have anyone to do that yesterday. And I thought we'd make a few more subs, which obviously we didn't end up doing. And someone in the chat earlier was speaking about Andrew's subs. An interesting thing is, at the beginning of the season, he won 2 games by making changes at half-time. And he stopped doing it for some reason. He stopped doing it. He didn't do it against Ipswich. He didn't do it yesterday as well. And I'm not really sure why he stopped doing it, because it was really successful in those 2 games. And it's cost us in both the Fulham game and the Ipswich game. Although, to be fair to him in this case, who's he going to bring on? Our squad is such bare bones at the moment. Other than Lancashire, you can't really look to too many places which you can make a change. But yeah, I was not impressed with that first half at all, to be honest, and didn't improve much in the second half either.
Yeah, 100%. Interesting to hear as well from David, as always, in the chat, giving his thoughts about Maddison, a bit of consistency. Dan says in the chat, we miss Solanke's hard work. That's a good shout, that. I think we did.
Yeah, I've got to run, guys, but thank you very much, Harry, for having me on again, and good luck to everyone.
No worries.
I'll see you guys soon. Good to see you,
All the best. Cheers, Billy. Thank you. Billy has to jump. There we go. Thank you to Billy. James, I'll come back to you, actually. We've got a little XG stat here. Spurs XG in that first half was 0.33. Fulham's was 0.80. I don't like to into stats too much, but the first half suggested that Fulham were the better side.
Yeah, well, I think they were, to be honest. Yeah, not just the first half, but the whole. For me, Fulham were the better team. We've got to be holding our hands up with that, and can't believe we're doing that at home against Fulham. But they had the best chances, didn't they? You look back at it, and them saves that Forster made, and if we're all putting Forster as our man of the match, that tells the tale of the game, like quite obviously for me. And they were decent. But then we were quite wasteful. That again, I know I'm going back to that point you said earlier, but that beginning and that one-on-one, Son running through, that if that goes away, it's a different game. And yeah, we should have made some changes at half time, but maybe we haven't got the depth on that bench that we normally have to make them big shake-ups at half time. So when we was taking Maddison and people like off, we had people like Bentancur to come on, or like we was taking Solanke, Richarlison, and we had a better depth of bench that we didn't have. So yeah, maybe that's the reason. But I'm not shocked at all about Fulham having the best XG or whatever throughout the whole game. To me, if there was one team to win it, it would have been them, and Fraser Forster kept us in it. Really, not massive. It wasn't a massive gap, but 1-1 was probably the overall fair result. But if I was to choose one side who deserved to win, it would have been Fulham.
I'll mute myself there. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's interesting also to get the people in the thoughts, comments, giving their thoughts, because you've got Fulham fans here, Spurs fans here. A few Fulham fans saying that Fulham, they felt Fulham were the better side, should have been ahead at half time. Thought that we were wasteful. It's good to get that outside view. I think I agree with that. So it's not just Spurs fans thinking that. We'll move on to the second half, Josh. 1-0 Spurs. We got the first goal, 54th minute through Brennan Johnson. I mean, it's typical Brennan Johnson goal, isn't it? At the back post, and he's on fire at the minute, isn't he?
Well, it doesn't sit well with me saying he's on fire. I must be honest. It was a good finish. He takes up those positions really well. For me, all praise has to go to Timo Werner. That was a fantastic ball in. To have that
100%.
vision, to execute that cross. A lot of people doubt Timo Werner's end products, but actually, just in the space of a week, he's got 2 very good assists, both to Brennan Johnson. Now, there's no faulting Brennan Johnson's finishing ability, especially in the box. He in many ways, I question whether he might even be better as a striker. He's got that sort of poacher's instinct that I really like. But his performances are just not good enough. Imagine how good Brennan, and this is not to say that to dismiss the fact that he's our top goal scorer, but just imagine how good Brennan Johnson could be if his overall game was as good as his finishing inside the box.
Does it matter though, Josh, if he's scoring? Is what I would say. So I've got a stat here. He's got 14 starts for Brennan Johnson in all competitions. He's got 10 goals. He's got 3 goals in these last 3. Does that not matter that he's contributing, he's getting the goals, getting assists that ultimately are points for us, rather than whether he chased up the ball here or performed? Does it matter that much?
Yes, it does, because we didn't win the game. We didn't win a game against Ipswich as well, and he was a key part in that. Imagine, if he could take on his man rather than shy away from challenges, pass the ball backwards all the time. If he actually was progressive with the ball and he had that level of confidence. Here's a great example. Kulusevski. When Kulusevski came on, he was constantly running at his man, trying to make stuff happen. If Johnson was doing the same, and he was providing as well as just finishing those chances in the box, we would not only be better going forward, we'd be more solid defensively as well. So
I hear what you're saying, but look who he was up against yesterday. For me, one of the best left backs in the league in Anthony Robinson.
Anthony Robinson,
you're going to beat him.
No, he's a good. You absolutely can beat him, because he already did beat him for the goal. Anthony Robinson is a good player.
But there you go. That's credit to Johnson, then, isn't it? He beat one of the best left backs.
Harry. He was crap yesterday. Let's not beat around the bush. He was absolutely crap yesterday. He was absolutely crap against Roma as well. Brennan Johnson, I really like him. I think he's good at finishing, but as a winger in this system, he's someone that, I can make the excuse for Son because he's been in and out of injury. He's getting on a bit. He's lost a yard of pace. But there are times where you want Brennan to just sprint. Look, if you watch the game back, if you're able to watch the full 90 back, you'd see the amount of times that Brennan Johnson was just walking rather than ambling back really slowly. There were times where Pedro Porro was absolutely done out, was not able to track back. That's when Brennan Johnson, someone that's younger and and as quick as him, should be, giving everything to try and cover his back. But he didn't do that.
We're all agree with you, Josh. He doesn't track back enough. I think if you look at a lot of our goals, he just doesn't do that. I think it's, in terms of taking on a man, I think it's more of a confidence thing. I want to get your thoughts on what you put it down to, but I think that he probably could beat some of these defenders that we're talking about. But I think it's a lot. I don't know. Maybe it's just a confidence thing, and he's scoring a lot of goals, but they are all at the back post. I thought yesterday was, it was back post, but it was still a nicely finished goal. But I think there's definitely more he can do. His all-round game isn't perfect. It isn't there at the moment. I totally get what you're saying.
I'm not being critical of Brennan Johnson because I think he's a bad player. I'm being critical of Brennan Johnson because I see so much potential in him and
absolutely.
That I think he could become an exceptional footballer. But the rest of his game needs to step up. He can't, and in many ways, I think he's been saved by the goals. If he hadn't been scoring these goals, we would be talking completely different about Brennan Johnson because of the level of his performance at the minute. So all I'm trying to get at is the fact that this is a guy that finishes really, really well. He's instinctive. He makes good runs. But just how good could he become if the rest of his game was elevated? I'm looking at him as the one with the sort of mantle to become our next big key attacking player, our next superstar winger, because we know that Son's getting on a bit and we need someone to step up now. And Brennan Johnson has all the tools, but the level of performance needs to improve. And if he does that, he will be absolutely brilliant. He could have double the goals that he's on. We could be talking about him scoring his 20th goal of the season rather than his 10th, which, in and of itself, that shouldn't be dismissed. It's a great achievement. He's doing very, very well. But that overall performance certainly does matter because we're not winning football matches. We're losing far too many, drawing or dropping points in far too many games.
Players out as well. We need players like that to step up. They're capable of it. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I could totally get that. I think well explained. Thank you very much, Josh. James, I want to talk about Timo Werner because he's actually not. I didn't know this. I've literally just read this, but he's now got more goals and assists this Premier League season than Phil Foden, Cody Gakpo, John Duran, and Eberechi Eze. I mean, Eze, there's no surprise he's been out a long while. Foden City have struggled, but the one that surprised me is Duran. I mean, we talk about always having an instant impact for Villa. I think, of course, they've struggled recently, but Werner, proper little, good patch of form for him. What did you make of his assist for this goal? I mean, it's quite a nice assist, isn't it, really, if you watch it back?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm with Josh in that goal was all him. It was an incredible ball, wasn't it? And we've not seen him be doing much of that, to be honest. But but I've been impressed with Werner. I think he was our strongest out of the three, which is the biggest shock. Because when I saw his name on the song on the first 11, I thought, oh no, this isn't going to be good. But yeah, he was the best one out of the three. I do like the thought of him coming on now with this bit of form that he's getting when players and defenders are getting tired, because he's got such an amazing pace, and to add this little bit of confidence that he's got on these balls and his assists, and now he's got another assist as well, and he's getting well loved around the stadium. When he came off and he's walking, even though we just conceded, he was walking around and he was getting a nice applause from the fans. He's walking around. I think that all helps bit by bit. I think he's one of the players that's on the up, really. The rest of them not really. But yeah, he was the strongest one going forward for me. Fantastic assist yet again. Put in a good performance. And you can tell that he really wants it. Whether he's got his full confidence back and whether he's going to hit the heights of the Leipzig. Was it Leipzig he was playing for? The Leipzig days. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, I do like the thought of 67, when we were at full strength even, 60th, 70th minute, bringing on a Werner with a bit more confidence is really good, especially the way that we play, right? Having that pace down the wing, and now he's finding the balls a little bit more, and now he's getting a bit more confidence. Yeah, I was quietly impressed with Werner, but it's hard to feel like that after our overall team performance from everybody. But Forster and Werner with my little shining lights in that whole team.
Yeah, James, would you say also that the goal come against the run of play, based on what we've seen in that first, even just like the start of the second half, where Fulham, I think, were the better team?
A little bit, but that we I don't know. Part of us, we all sort of turned around and said we kind of saw it coming as well. I mean, they were starting to sort of outdo us a little bit down the wing. But like Porro was looking like he was getting done every time. So I kind of saw a little bit of it coming. There was problems down that wing for quite a bit. So I definitely wasn't shocked, but it was a great finish as well, to be honest, wasn't it? I mean, he took that well, but. No, I kind of saw it coming. To be honest with you, it wasn't really a shock for me. We had a great start to that second half, but yeah, we was our own problem yet again. So yeah, part of me saw it a bit coming. No, Porro looked tired. From even some parts in the first half, for me, he looked a bit tired. So as that went on and on and on, and I got to agree with Josh that with that no tracking back and putting that pressure on him, he was getting. Yeah. He was just doing the job of two men then, and he was already tired, and that's where a lot of problems come for me.
But is that where you looked at Jed Spence, as Josh said, on the bench? 100%. For me, I think it is.
100%. I mean, we've renewed his contract, and like in the FA Cup, his commentary really come on. He's absolutely brilliant. I mean, you can tell that he wants it. There must be there's probably an issue there, I would imagine, because I can't fathom why they're not. If I reckon most fans see the tiredness of Porro, but sat in that stadium could see it was that obvious. So there must be a problem there where we're not moving fullbacks around, getting Spence on and playing Archie Gray out like on the left back as well.
I love Gray, but not as a defender. He puts in a good shit. Done well against Roma, but it's not his best attributes.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it must be. And the same with why not give Reguilon a shot as well, because we are knackering our fullbacks out. We're playing them all the time, and now we've got a game every 2 or 3 days, which is good as fans to try and get over what's happened. But these players got to go again and again and again. So I'm hoping to see some rotation there for just how tired they were.
Yeah, 100%. James, I know you have to jump now. Where can people find you? That's all right. Where can people find you across social media? Because obviously you do some excellent work, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah, so I'm playing at the stadium for the home games. I either playing at Shelf Bar or White Hart Bar, or you can find me on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's all at the Voice of Spurs for all of them. And thank you for having me on. That was good fun. Sorry, I've got to go, man.
No worries at all. Thank you. It's a real honour to get you on. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you. Cheers, James. All the best. Massive thanks to James Black. Josh, the show must go on, as they say. Me and you. I mean, James was a bit early there with Fulham's goal. So we'll pull it back to before that, the decision about the whole red card thing to do with Kearney. Because a lot kind of went on here. Actually, no, before we get to that, 62nd minute, Kearney and Wilson come on for Fulham. They come on to replace Lukic and Nelson. We've already spoke about how both of them done well. But I want to focus on, in particular, Nelson, because he just looked exceptional, didn't he? Obviously, got a lot of ex-Arsenal players in there, sadly. Nelson, I thought, was one of the better of them in this game.
Yeah, I think both him and Iwobi gave us some problems yesterday, and I don't know how much that's down to their real quality or, down to potentially the Spurs fullbacks looking really leggy. I think probably a bit of both. But, I think this is something that is really nice to see about Fulham, if I take my Spurs hat off for a second, because what you've got is a bunch of players, Bernd Leno, Emil Smith-Rowe, Alex Iwobi.
Rediscovering their career, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, they were deemed not good enough for Arsenal. They've been given a second chance and an element of, now it's time to really prove your worth and reinvent yourself. And they're doing just that. And I think Nottingham Forest is probably a similar story with players like Hudson-Odoi. And it's really good, to see that from a sort of neutral perspective, because these are very, very good players, and it's not quite worked out. Iwobi was fine at Everton, but now he's gone up a level. He had a brilliantly taken goal against Wolves the other week as well. So, they're a very good side. I really like the job that Marco Silva's doing. They've completely consolidated. And I think, this is probably the first time since the Roy Hodgson days where Fulham fans maybe believe that they might once again return to Europe at some point. Whether that happens, it's going to be incredibly tough. So many teams in that dogfight for it. However, Fulham, I think it's fair to say, have as good a chance as any of the other teams that are sort of, the Newcastles, the Villas, teams like that. I think they should absolutely be in the conversation right now. And that's testament to players like Reece Nelson stepping up and also the job that Marco Silva's doing as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm totally with you on that. I think maybe that centre-back area, there's a little bit more they could do, but midfield-wise, attacking-wise, even in some areas defensively, I just think they're so strong and with depth, even maybe more so than us. I'm not saying they necessarily have a better team, but in terms of depth and options in a couple of positions, I think absolutely plentiful. But at the same time, if Santa Berger gets out, we talked about if Smith Rowe goes out, there's a little bit of problem if they become unavailable. But I thought these changes changed the game for Fulham. And evidence of that is, what we move on 5 minutes later to the 67th minute where Fulham equalised 1-1, which James was talking about before he left. It was Tom Cairney. It was a great strike, wasn't it, Tom? I mean, is it, Josh, from Tom Cairney, is there anything that Fraser Forster or Spurs could do to stop that, maybe go out to him? I don't think there is really.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think getting out a bit quicker on the press just creates that window of doubt as to whether you could get a deflection on it or something on it. But take nothing away from the strike. It was absolutely magnificent from Tom Cairney. What a great servant to Fulham Football Club he's been. Been there for so many years, made hundreds of appearances. I think he's made over 330 appearances for them now. And he's been through the hard times with them. They're in the Championship with them. And at each level where Fulham have progressed, since coming up, and then as they've progressed since returning to the top flight, Tom Cairney has been a key part of that. He's not necessarily played every minute, but he's a real leader. He leads by example, and I think, the strike was brilliant. Certainly no complaints in terms of whether Forster could save it or not. I don't think any keeper's saving that really. But from a Spurs perspective, yes, I think maybe we could have anticipated a little bit better and tried to get out a little bit quicker. But sometimes you've got to hold your hands up and say, do you know what a great strike. It's been coming and it was deserved. It was the least they deserved, Fulham, yesterday. Yeah. And I'm sure Fulham fans will be delighted with that goal.
Yeah, I'm sure they will be. Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. A really good strike. This is what I wanted to move on to, and I went early for 83rd minute. Tom Cairney turns to 0-0, and was sent off after the on-field referee Darren Bond, who I thought had a good game, by the way, was sent to the monitor. Correct decision, wasn't it, Josh? I mean, the thing I'm worried about here is how the Darren Bond, the on-field referee, didn't see this originally. He was right next to it.
Yeah, that was completely baffling. Look, we've been praising Tom Cairney in the last couple of minutes, but it was a shocking challenge, really. I'm not in any way insinuating that this is part of Tom Cairney's character. I'm sure he will be more disappointed than anyone else by the challenge, but it was a disgusting challenge. It was really, really bad. One of those that, you don't even need to slow it down to see how bad it is. First viewing is enough. To go so high and scrape right the way down. Was it Kulusevski's leg? It's the type of it, you could really cause a serious injury going in like that. So absolutely the correct decision eventually. But yeah, no idea why Darren Bond didn't see that straight away. I think it was clear as day for both of us in the stands that it was a nasty challenge straight away. We were obviously a lot further away than the referee was. But, that is, I suppose, where VAR is at its best. It was quite a quick review. It didn't take too long. It was, deemed clear and obvious. And now that's going to be a big blow for Fulham for the next few games. But you don't want to see challenges like that on a football pitch.
You don't. I suppose VAR served its purpose, though, didn't it, Josh, in that case? As much as it's annoying that the on-field referee didn't see it from football as a whole. I mean, that's what VAR is there for. It didn't take too long either, did it?
No, absolutely. And actually, Barney's just raised something to my attention that I didn't even know. So apparently he sent he posted a message out sort of on X after the challenge. I'm assuming apologise and to, and whatnot. So I think that's sort of shows the kind of guy that he is, which is great to see.
100%.
I think it's always, it was a mistake. It was a bad challenge, but I think I always have a lot of respect for players that will go out of their way to address that. And unlike certain players, Matty Cash.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matty Cash. I mean, the amount of things that he's done. Don't get me started on Matty Cash. Not keen at all. I don't think he's that good of a player as well. I think we're starting to hear that from Villa fans now. But full time, Josh, it ended 1-1. Loud bruise at half time and full time. Would you say overall, though, we were lucky to get the point? Maybe Fulham deserved it more?
Absolutely. I think you've summed it up perfectly. We were. In many ways, actually, we'll look back at that and think that was a good point to get this season. And I know that sounds crazy because, we should absolutely be winning the game. But the reality is we were the worst team and Fulham, really deserved to win that game, in my opinion. So to actually come away with a point, I think flatters us a little bit. And glad that we didn't lose the game, because that would have been, I think, all hell would have broken loose if that had happened. Just on the booze, it's not for everyone. I understand it does really rile some people up. But as far as I'm concerned, I booed. I personally did. And the reason is because
so did I.
I sing my lungs out every single game. I lose my voice most games, and I'm sat around and stood around people that don't care to join in, can't be bothered. The atmosphere is terrible. We've seen a terrible performance. These season tickets cost an awful lot of money. It costs an awful lot of money to travel up to games. People come from far and wide. I was seeing stories of people on X, for example, that left at 5:30 in the morning to get there for kickoff and hadn't got home until 9 p.m. at night. People travel from a long, long way to see the team, and all they expect is to see maximum effort. And I know there was exhaustion.
It's not asking for a lot, though, is it? It's not asking for a lot at all.
But it's that. And, I was a little bit disappointed and confused when Ange Postecoglou kind of said that he felt the players did give everything. I don't think they did. I really don't think they did. But then again, look at the injuries, look at the amount of games these guys are playing. The football schedule is killing players. There's no doubt. The evidence is clear. But there were times, challenges, certain moments where you really you come away from it feeling like why did I bother? We bother because we love the team, we love our club, and we just want our club to be successful. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that booing is something, it's a matter of personal conscience. I don't think people should be getting as irate at people that boo as they do. I think ultimately I also do understand why people don't like it. But yeah, some real aggression from some Spurs fans towards those that were booing. I think you have every right to do it when you're paying your ticket, and such good fans have been priced out of the game. So and it always comes down to this simple point. Look at the money they're on. Look at the money that those players are on. Look at all of the luxury that they have, all of the facilities, all of the sort of everything around what they get to do. They have the best job in the world.
There shouldn't be much sympathy, should there? And there's a lot of pressure that's put on the manager, and I always think some of that should be deflected back on those players as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, the manager's played a lot as well. In this case, Ange Postecoglou, for making the decisions. I totally get that. But the players as well, I think, do shy away from responsibility. I think that's a big thing of what we've seen at Man United with Ten Hag. I think a lot of it was players. I mean, we've seen now Rashford and Fernandes all of a sudden really performing out of nowhere. I'm sure Anthony will be quick to join that conversation as well, but they go missing when they're needed. But Josh, one thing I really want to talk about is the atmosphere, because you mentioned it. I mean, I think it's been poor this week because I was at both the Roma game, because obviously I'm a season ticket holder. I was at the Roma game, and then I was at this game against Fulham. I thought they're both bad. Roma, I think, was to do with the prices and the timing, obviously a midweek evening, but I had the whole row, for example, to myself, the whole 30, 50, whatever it was, seats around me. Yeah, exactly. And we could stand up for the whole game, and it's really mixed up. It's really, really odd, disjointed, a bit like the team. And then Fulham was odd as well. And just I was in the shelf, whole section quiet. And I'm all for doing your own thing when you go to football. And I get, that's fine. But obviously, I'm in the 1882 bit as well. Some people pay a little bit more, not want to be. I don't know, maybe a little bit more of that corporate fan. But it does annoy me when you don't back the team when they need it the most. The fans got to take responsibility here because the team are in a crisis with injuries. They're not a good start to the season, as you said. It's not perfect at all. This is where the team needs the fans, surely.
Well, I don't know how many real, genuine fans are left, to be honest. Because every single game that I go to, the people around me, I could pick out the sort of dozen or so people that I know, that I see every game. But half of those weren't there against Roma. Half of those weren't there against Qarabağ. Half of those weren't there against Manchester City either. A lot of them don't go to the cup games. And frankly, every single game that I go to, the people around me are totally different. You know, we used to go to the Lane, and at the Lane, you had the same people around you all the time. But you know, and Barney said it's the same at the Cottage. You know, but Fulham's a great example. They're just like Spurs. The ownership cares about one thing and one thing only, which is making profit. They do not care about footballing success. And what we're seeing is, unfortunately, and it's an unpopular opinion, I'm all for our club being, and I'm immensely proud of the fact that we're a global club. We're supported all around the world.
Yeah.
But the stadium is catering to day trippers and people that are there for the occasion. They're not there because they genuinely support the team. And if people want to doubt that, why was it that I was surrounded by Roma fans in the home end against Roma? Why is it that in most games, you know, take the Man City game. The Man City game in the Carabao Cup, I had someone, and I will send you the photo on WhatsApp, Harry. The guy stood in front of me was wearing a Middlesbrough tracksuit, and underneath his Middlesbrough tracksuit was a Manchester City top. That is the level of how this has got to. And I think, yes, okay, of course, I would like to see fans, you know, give more and sing more, of course. But you know, I know that there are groups that have been putting an awful lot of work in and trying really hard to work with the club to improve the atmosphere. The club doesn't want to know. The club is not giving them the ability to do that. You only need to see how difficult it is for Spurs to get a TIFO going. You know, I think we'll have one against Chelsea, but it's immensely difficult. You know, it's all well and good having these light shows and all the fancy sort of glitz and glam, but ultimately the atmosphere is terrible. Every single game without fail this season, bar Qarabağ, which actually, in my opinion, was the best atmosphere we've had this season at a home game, has been team after team after team singing, is this the Emirates? Football in a library. They sing it every game about us because the atmosphere is terrible. You get the occasional dull groan of "Come on, you Spurs," and that's about it. Even the start where we have got the trumpet player singing, "Oh, when the Spurs go marching in," even that was drab against Roma and was pretty drab.
But it didn't even work properly in the last game. The sound wasn't coming through, so the fans had to fill in. And even that, as you said, it's really average. And
no,
the atmosphere for me was
pretty
awful.
Tim Pop, to be honest. It's pretty Tim Pop. You know, it feels like home. I don't think the stadium doesn't feel like home. I definitely feel like I'm home when I'm there. But
I don't get excuses from a fan point of view for not being up for it. And it's the same thing for me leaving early. Of course, everyone has their own reasons. And if you pay your money, you should have your own choice, as you've alluded to. Absolutely right. When the team needs you, it's 1-1. And we're talking 15, 20 minutes to go, and you've got hundreds and hundreds of people pouring out the stadium. I know that traffic's a big issue. I totally get that. But I do think there's a lot of not backing the team involved. The ones that leave are often the quiet fans.
No, absolutely. And actually, we've seen times, I'm sure you're like me, you like to stay to the very end. And you've seen times where actually when thousands have poured out the stadium, the atmosphere improves because the ones that genuinely support the team often stay. But, you know, I think there's a couple of elements to it. It's not as easy as just the fans need to improve. That is one thing. Equally, the fans feed off the performance of the players. The players haven't been playing good enough at home. Funnily enough, the atmosphere has been much better when we've won games and been winning convincingly. That's just the Spurs way this season. When we win by quite a lot. But at the same time, I think the finger needs to be pointed at the ownership of the club and owners in general and the state of football in this country. You can still go abroad and watch teams in Europe at the highest level in Europe for a considerably cheaper price. Look at Germany and the 20s Plenty campaign. that they had. We are pricing fans out of football, and they are robbing fans, in broad daylight. And that is the real issue here. When you've got ordinary fans that used to go to the Lane, care about the club more than anyone, but they simply cannot afford to go anymore because you're looking at £67 or whatever it was for Roma. You're looking at £80 for Ipswich at home. Something's not right there. And Fulham is no better. Fulham has some of the most expensive season tickets in the Premier League. And I know it's in yuppie Fulham and Putney.
Yeah, but their prices are cheap compared to ours, because I was talking to Barney the other day. It's not right, don't get me wrong, but the Spurs, we're talking the Tunnel Club, we're talking about a 40 grand joining fee with nothing for it. And then that 40 grand every season. I mean, Fulham, it's a lot, don't get me wrong, but it looks great and all that, but it isn't the same extortionate price as Spurs is.
I was speaking to a Fulham fan, only the other week, one that I know, because I live quite local to Craven Cottage. It's a 5-minute walk from me. And he pays something like £960 or something for a season ticket, £950. So it's gone up a little bit since the Championship, but not by a huge amount. And then the Tottenham season tickets, you're looking at double that for a Tottenham season ticket. And are you really getting double the quality for that?
No,
okay, yes, it's a shiny new stadium.
Probably getting half.
Really, on the pitch, which is the most important thing, are we getting double the quality? I don't think so. So I'm not. I don't. It doesn't sit well with me. I've got, I could do a whole show talking about the owners and my dislike for them, but I don't want to drab on, any more about it.
No worries. No, I appreciate that. We'll move on to the rest of the post-match analysis before we move on to Bournemouth. But firstly, though, I want to get Ange Postecoglou's assessment and kind of his verdict, I suppose, on this draw. It's always interesting to see what the gaffer has to say.
Ange, how do we go today?
Yeah, look, tough game for sure. Not a lot of openings for either club. Some sort of, both sort of had some one or two good chances. Started the game really well, had some good chances to sort of go ahead. We missed those, and then they had their spell. Fraser pulled off a couple of good saves, and then second half, once we scored, I felt like we could sort of grow into the game. We just weren't able to push on. And, they had a decent strike from the edge of the box to get them back in the game. And then, at the end, when obviously after the red card, we tried to build some momentum, but at that point there wasn't a lot of football being played. There was a lot of stoppages, so we just couldn't really get on top of them.
If we go back to the beginning of the game, how hard was that to manage, having been so close with Dom and then having to make changes, or was that part of the plan at that point that maybe he wouldn't start?
No, we didn't find out till he got here. So, which again, it's kind of the spell we're in at the moment, and it's why I've got to give credit to these players. I mean, it's just unbelievable the effort that they're putting in at the moment to keep us sort of progressing and keep us. Keep pushing on to try and get us to where we want to be is outstanding, considering the kind of challenges we're getting thrown at the moment.
So that is Ange Postecoglou after the game. Interesting to hear. I mean, he stuck by the players there. He could have very easily, couldn't he, Josh, just gone, look, the players look good enough today, this was unacceptable. Do you like that to an extent, manager getting behind the players, or do you look at that and go, the players weren't good enough and we need to hear that from the manager?
No, I don't like it at all. I think that he's tiptoeing around the issues. I think that we're hearing an awful lot about the number of injuries. We're hearing an awful lot about, the strain on the players. Those are completely valid points. I completely understand that. But at the end of the day, too many times this season, even when we've had, our full strength team or near enough our full strength team, the performances haven't been good enough. It's been far too inconsistent. Look at the teams that we've dropped points to in the Premier League this season: Brighton, Leicester, Crystal Palace, Ipswich, Fulham. These are games that Brighton, look, don't get me wrong, Brighton's not an easy place to go. They're a very, very good side. Fabian Hürzeler's doing an immense job there. They always seem to get their recruitment, their appointments spot on. But We're 2-0 up, absolutely dominating, playing brilliant football, and we collapse. Leicester, we absolutely dominated the game. How many times? That was like the Roma game. Should have comfortably won that game, didn't win the game. Newcastle was another one. Completely dominated the game, end up losing. We cannot keep going on like this. You cannot keep making excuses for this. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters, you mentioned XG earlier. I think it's the biggest nonsense in football. I cannot stand it. It's the ultimate, it's the epitome of the game's gone, in my view, because XG is this thing, in my view, that it's a stat that people use to try and sound more intelligent when talking about football. The reality is you watch the game with your eyes, and the only thing that matters is the result and the scoreline. And those things aren't going in our favour at the minute. We've been far too inconsistent, and irrespective of the number of injuries and that, and the problems we've faced, other teams have faced problems too. We're not the only ones. Everyone is struggling to cope with the amount of games, and that's a question for the football authorities. I think Ange did get that spot on when he said at some point that's going to come home to roost. I completely agree.
Yeah.
But ultimately the performance wasn't good enough. The players weren't good enough. The substitutions weren't good enough, and the timing of the substitutions weren't good enough. And this has been a consistent theme. That has been one of the consistent themes this season. The consistency is our inconsistency this season.
100%.
So actually, at some point, I'm getting pretty bored of Ange Postecoglou kind of saying the same thing after games. At some point, I think he needs to take real responsibility and say, look, we weren't good enough. The players weren't good enough. We're sorry that our form hasn't been good enough. We need to fix this.
We're hitting the same thing up. We're going to improve. We're going to learn. We're on the road. But what do you count as progress? Because the table suggests otherwise. Our starts of the season suggest otherwise. Our performances are suggesting otherwise. What's this progress apart from the first 10, 12 games of the season? I'm still fully behind him, to be completely clear. Absolutely fully behind him without a shadow of a doubt. But he does keep saying the same things I don't think he's talking to the reporter. I think he's talking to his shoes, but he does seem to say the same thing after every game.
No, for sure. Look, the other thing that's worth mentioning is the fact that, in many ways we have improved. Let's not, mess around.
Of course,
Goals in the league. We've conceded the third fewest, behind Man United.
I think we sorted out the set piece issue as well, generally speaking.
No, I
think we have. I think it was a big issue last season.
Very fortunate to concede fewer goals every time. Come on, Harry. Come on, let's be honest. Every time the opposition have a free kick or a corner, you're worried, aren't you?
Yes, but that's basically
exactly. And that to me typifies that I don't think that we've solved the issue.
But you look at goals conceded; it's very low.
No, sure. That is true. That is true. And that I think some of that's down to luck, but also it's mad to admit it, but I do somewhat feel like with Radu in that back line and actually Ben Davis, I actually feel slightly more confident than I do with Romero and Van de Ven. And I think that's one of the really interesting ones is, Romero, I think, has struggled ever since his concussion against Brentford. I know that he's had to see a doctor about repeat headaches, which is not good. And Van de Ven is a big guy, and yet he's not dominant at all in the air. Imagine if Van de Ven could start dominating in the air like someone like Virgil van Dijk does. I mean, it would be completely game-changing for us. But
sometimes Van de Ven's pace is his downfall, isn't it, in terms of position? And
sure. But what I would say, look, is we have improved in many aspects, but the only thing that matters is the league table, the points, the results. That's the only thing that matters.
What do you make of, by the way, Ange saying after the Roma game the other day, it's about entertainment? I mean, he said it with a smile on his face, but I do think he believes that.
Oh, he absolutely does believe it. And actually, I'm not critical of that in the sense that, there's no reason why you can't win football matches and still entertain. But what we saw against Manchester City was a far more pragmatic Tottenham. It was a Tottenham that were prepared to let the team have the ball and break efficiently, knowing when to throw the fullbacks forward and when not to. They didn't invert pretty much the whole game. They actually kind of stayed pretty wide. And in fact, in some ways, the wingers came a bit more narrow. And that was a completely different type of football in many ways to what we have seen, certainly in the games where we play teams with a low block and we struggle to break them down. But actually, I was far more entertained by that with a little bit more pragmatism. And actually, that in my mind shows that Ange is capable of changing the way we play slightly to tailor to the opposition. But actually, when we had the ball, we played some of the best football that we played this season. We were really, really inventive on the ball. Players took risks. We played a few good long balls out wide. We were pretty direct. And actually, in that regard, I'd like to see a little bit more of that from Spurs, because I don't think it still very much felt like Ange ball. It still very much felt like the type of football that we want to see in the right way of playing, but it was just done in a little bit more of a clever way, and I think sometimes we need to approach games a little bit more like that at times. It's not going to work every game, but I have no complaints. I completely with Ange, actually. I do like the fact that he wants to entertain, but ultimately the results is the most important thing. And
it's a results-based business, isn't it? That's what his job will be defined on.
Well, but then at the same time, Spurs on their day can beat anyone and will beat anyone on their day. And in many ways, that bodes better for cup games. And in many ways, if Spurs get to a cup final under Ange Postecoglou this season, of course, the Carabao Cup, we've got a huge game against Manchester United.
But Europa League, I think we might just squeeze through over the dotted line. To be honest with you, I think the list of Rangers. I think we draw to Hoffenheim and maybe win our last game, and I've
no doubts we'll automatically qualify, and that's another one where we should be looking to go all the way. But when you look at the cup competitions this year, the way that we play and the principles of Ange ball, I do fancy our chances in a cup final more than I do or have done otherwise.
That's good to hear.
But in the league, which is also as important, we're not quite seeing the results, and so for me, I want to see a little bit more, acceptance of some of these issues. And as much as we have,
if we win a trophy, though, who cares? I mean, really, where we finish in the league, I'm not one of them I used to be bothered. But why are we trying to qualify for a competition, and whether it be the Europa League or Champions League? Let's use the Champions League, for example, just to be in it. We've done that. We've been there, done it, ticked it off. We're not going to win it.
Well, as long as if you're competing, you can win anything. I don't like the idea of sacrificing anything in any competition.
Well, talk about sacrifice. It sacrifices your season, doesn't it? When you're in something like the Champions League, it completely wrecked Villa, Newcastle, Man United.
But that's down to the fact that I think Newcastle and Villa both outperformed where they should be. They went very quickly from nowhere near it to in that position. I've got a good friend that's a Villa fan. We're having this conversation last night, and I said, look, I think actually let's not forget how recent you were in a relegation fight.
17th when Emery took over.
Well, exactly. So Spurs have been in and around that top 4, top 6 for 15 years now. At some point we've got to kick on, and we've got to be consistently there and doing better. We've got more money or more ability to spend money, and more money than some of these clubs. We should be doing better, and that's on the ownership. But to deliver, we cannot have this cycle continue where Ange doesn't get players he needs. And I know Ange is going to come out and say he's happy, but let's face it, what happens when a Tottenham manager comes and throws their toys out the pram? They get sacked the next day.
Yeah, he's got much choice at all.
Exactly. So I think you've got your hands tied in that regard. But look, we are all desperate to end that trophy drought, 100%. But ultimately, at the same time, I don't want to sacrifice our ability in the league either, because you could throw all your eggs into the basket of trying to win a cup competition, but ultimately, if you do get to the final, it's down to one game. It could be one lapse of concentration or individual error, and you've lost the game. For all the dominance, we cannot afford to say Spurs get to the Carabao Cup final. We can't be coming out of that game saying we dominated the game, we just didn't take our chances, and hearing much of the same. The result
is progress, though. It will be progress because you've got to the final the first time in a few years, whereas I don't think finishing 5th or 6th, which I think is probably the best pushing it that we could achieve this year, if I'm being totally honest with you, this moment in time. I think it's great.
We shouldn't be in a position.
No, I agree.
It's the best that we can achieve. So many teams are dropping points, as I mentioned right at the start of the show.
Yeah, I'm not going to say we can't do better than that. Maybe that's harsh, but Liverpool's nailed on. Boom. I think Arsenal will really push on. I think City will rediscover form. I think United are going to push on, be stronger. Chelsea, I don't think we're even in a competition with them at the moment. But I look at teams like Newcastle and Villa and go, that's probably our battle for 6th. To be honest, I'm trying to be positive.
No, I know, but all it takes is Spurs to beat Bournemouth and then beat Chelsea, and suddenly we're right back in the conversation.
But do you think we can do that? That's the thing. It is as easy as that, but will we do it?
We can do it. Whether we do it, whether we do succeed in that.
Can I be totally honest with you? I think we lose both of the games.
I wouldn't be surprised if we won both. I wouldn't be surprised if we drew both. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost both. That is kind of where we're at as a football club at the minute. The one thing I would say is I don't quite believe that Romero and Van de Ven are as far away as people are talking about.
That is good to hear. That is reassuring.
Speculation.
I don't want to miss them that much. We haven't missed them that much. Just Van de Ven's pace with the system, I think.
Look,
we have.
The way that Spurs did that post about Van de Ven before the Fulham game, and the fact that he's back on the grass, I put it this way, I wouldn't be surprised if both of them were back for Chelsea and they were being saved for that. I wouldn't be surprised. What I would also say, though, is look, it is a couple of results that can change things. One thing I will say is a massive...
It is really tight. You are right. It is really tight. Not that far away from that third.
In many ways, this has probably been the most entertaining start to a Premier League season that I can remember
100%,
in many, many years, because Spurs are in a position where had we beat Ipswich and Fulham, we'd be second right now. But equally...
that's mind-blowing. That's two super wins.
But then lose to Bournemouth and Chelsea, and we could be as low as 13th. So it is really, 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 really mad at the minute. So this is why we've got to try and keep level-headed about it, even though we're both getting, frustrated. No, I mean the concessions is crazy. It's absolutely
people can't see it. David Clark, again, the regular on the show, has brought up about the concessions. I think Spurs removing that is completely wrong. But Josh, we'll move on to getting the Fulham side of things, because you've got Barney, who sent in a video. I met him at the weekend. Good to see him. Obviously, I do some autism awareness work with him as well. So it's good to get a Fulham point of view on this game. Here's what he had to say.
Finished Tottenham Hotspur 1, Fulham 1 here at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think a very deserved point. We could have taken all three. Harry Wilson changed the game when he came on. We had lots of opportunities in the first half. Sending off, it happens. I think it probably was at the end of the day. A great goal by Tom Kearney. And Spurs is always a hard place to come. You never quite know. But genuinely, I was so impressed. Spurs battled, but they looked a bit slow and tired. We looked very sharp, very assured. We had lots of chances in the first half. Quite dominant, in fact. It was really pleasing to see. And overall, I don't think it's a very, very excellent point. Because after the Wolves result, I was wondering, how'd we go? But, we were light years better, super better. And nice to see you today, Harry, mate, and see you soon. And up to Fulham, onwards to Brighton on Thursday.
It's good to get Barney's thoughts there. And he's, honest in terms of he thought Fulham were better, and he was really impressed with them. He focused a lot on Fulham, but I appreciate his honesty the other way, I suppose, about Kearney, that he thought it's a red card. It's refreshing to hear, isn't it, Josh, when you have fans, that can see past that, even just after the game, which was this was filmed, that because it was a red card. We've spoken about it, but I think it's good to see you take the kind of our supporters' hat off, which is it's hard to do.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a very obvious red card. I think you'd be crazy if you didn't think it was a red card.
But, that is very true.
In many ways, these are why I enjoy these types of Premier League games, because you do get opposition supporters who maybe aren't as tribal about playing us as Arsenal and Chelsea and West Ham, etc. So it is nice having a more balanced view there, and a big up to Barney and all the work that he's been doing with you, Harry, with autism awareness and neurodiversity awareness. Someone with ADHD, I can completely vouch for the work you're doing. I think it's brilliant.
Thank you.
And good to see that he had a good time at the Tottenham Stadium yesterday, even to a suffering of us as Spurs fans.
Thank you, Josh. What do you make of Fulham themselves? Because obviously you've done well in this game, but their start to the season, and we talked about what they could do for Europe, but they've been good, haven't they?
Yeah, very good side. Marco Silva's a top coach. And we referred to a video about body language yesterday after we conceded the goal, the equaliser from Tom Kearney. But there was another video, again circulated by Johnny Hamay, who showed the two managers and the body language. Marco Silva was constantly moving about, constantly instructing players, telling players where to go. When the red card happened, he very cleverly brought the players together. I think it was a bit of gamesmanship going on. Bernd Leno coincidentally, randomly got cramp. Don't believe it for a second, but he did that, went down, and Marco Silva brought all his players together, gave a mini team talk, got the players going.
They helped them.
Yes, it's the game plan, and Ange was just stood there with his hands.
But that's the thing, those drinks breaks, those opportunities, speak to the players, give them instructions, help them, encourage them, tell them what they're doing well. I'm not saying you have to micromanage. We've had that with Conte, Mourinho. I'm not saying that, but there is a lack of passion.
Ultimately,
I know you have your own ways, Josh, but it is ridiculous, isn't it? He must get sore feet at the end of the games. He doesn't move at all. He's in this position where I can't blame this, I can't blame that last season, I can't blame the officials. I like all of that, but he ties himself up. He's like, I can't blame the players. It's not my fault because my system's going to work. I can't blame the officials. I can't blame VAR. And that's part of the reason I think he just stands there. He's got nothing to say or do, and there's no input. And his coaching staff don't know what to do. They do more than him. They not even handing drinks.
No, I mean,
nothing to say. We don't give them drinks. Players have to come over and physically request it. That's shocking.
Look, I think that only the players and those inside will know what it's really like under Ange Postecoglou. I gather.
I'm sure he's great. I imagine he's a father.
I'd imagine he goes absolutely. I mean, we've all seen the video of him in the pre-season tour where he says, we go man for man, press in on the press, etc. So maybe that was a glimpse into it. I'm sure he's very, very.
And he's done it, hasn't he? Last year, Stamford Bridge, shouted Brennan the other day. I like that, and also you have to do that all the time. But there's not a lot there at times.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's impassioned probably before the game, after the game, and at half time. But during it, we just don't see that from him. And I think, but ultimately, that's down to personal preference. I just have always liked a manager that wears their heart on their sleeve and is a bit animated on the touchline, and I did like it when Conte used to jump into the arms.
I love it.
All of that. That's my personal preference. But sometimes when things aren't going well, you do want to see a bit more proactivity from the manager, getting stuck into players. And I thought actually, I agree with Barney. I want to see a manager involved, and Marco Silva was exactly that. And I don't think that's just not maybe who he is. But
Marco Silva isn't a nutter, most of the time, except Old Trafford. A little while back, the whole team must have had that day, but he can generally control himself and delivers sensible instructions, gains respect. I think Conte, is a bit of a nutter. Maybe you lose respect and will that way, I suppose, of the players wanting to play for you. But there's a balance. I mean, it's his way. If it works, then it's fine. I just give the players a drink, man, when they need it.
Well, no, I mean when the heads are down, in particular, there seemed to be constant encouragement from Marco Silva towards his players, and when heads are down, when the crowd is down, when the atmosphere is poor and it's all not quite going your way, at some point, someone needs to step up and take a bit of responsibility. And
100%.
If there are lack of leaders on the pitch, players like James Maddison aren't stepping up, then really the manager should be stepping up and really trying to gear his players up. And it just sort of felt like they were left there in a pretty dark place, trying to get themselves out of a bit of a hole. And we've had that a few times. So, it's down to personal preference. But, sometimes that was one thing I would really praise Marco Silva for, as well as his sort of tactical ability. I think his management style, and his passion is definitely something that we can't doubt.
No, 100%. Thank you for that. We'll move on to Bournemouth. How are you feeling, Josh, ahead of the game? And also talk us through your lineup. Any changes in there?
Well, it depends if Dom Solanke's back. It depends if Romero's back. We don't know. And that is ultimately, the difficulty when you've got so many injuries, and we don't really have a timeline on many of them. So it's all speculation. Let's assume that Solanke's back, but the others aren't. Then I think it would have to be Forster. Spence has to start for me this game. Porro looks so done, and I'd like to see Porro firing and ready to go against Chelsea. I don't think that we are weakening our side in any way by playing Jed Spence. Dragusin, Davis, Udogie. I don't think the Reguilon's going to get minutes, unfortunately. Although I would happily play with Reguilon and Spence, I don't think Reguilon's going to get minutes. Then I would go with Sarr, Madison, Kulusevski, Johnson, Son, and Solanke. I think we've got to go that way, in my view. And that's no sort of disrespect or offence to Timo Werner. I just think when you've got that front three available, that's the front three we should be going with. But Bournemouth are a good side. Anthony Iraola has done an immense job since taking over down on the south coast, and he's got them playing in a really, really good way. They've got a real few threats. I think Evan Nilsson's been impressive since coming in.
Yeah,
Antoine
really good.
Semenyo is being
Semenyo, so many shots.
Semenyo, people are talking about him moving to a club. I think a lot of Spurs fans would take him and give him the opportunity to link up with Dom Solanke again. And Milos Kerkez is really impressive at left back.
Getting assists now as well, isn't he, going forward?
And of course, Justin Kluivert, who, scored a hat-trick of penalties.
Hat-trick of penalties.
Against a really, really terrible Wolves side. But you still got to be there. You still got to take the pressure. That's a lot of pressure. And 100%. He was getting into good areas. So, look, they're no slouches. They've got Senese at the back, who's a good defender. They've got Kepa. I don't know if Kepa's... I'd imagine Kepa will play. Who's a very good goalkeeper. They've got some real quality in that squad. They're not going to be an easy game. Look at what happened when Arsenal went down. They went and got beat 2-0. Then City went there. They went and got beat there as well. So if anyone thinks that Bournemouth is going to be a walkover or an easy game, well, I don't think any Spurs fan would, because of knowing what we're like as a team. But, I thought we played really well there last season. We've done pretty well against Anthony Iraola. I think we won both our games against him so far since he's taken the job. But yeah, I think anything less than a win, unfortunately,
don't jinx it.
No, but I'm not going to jinx it. I'm not saying we're going to win. It's just inexcusable to not win the game. We really have to win the game. We cannot afford to drop any more points now, especially when you've got the likes of Liverpool, which I think is essentially a free hit. I don't think we'll win there, at home to them, and we're getting into this busy period. But the fact that there are games in every 3 days means that this is a real opportunity for Spurs to sort of dust off, whatever problems they may have, move on from disappointment and actually put things right and build a real run of form. If Spurs can go and win 3 or 4 games on the bounce, the whole narrative around our season will totally change. So let's start with Bournemouth. Let's start positive. It's not going to be an easy game. They're a good side. Let's go and really prove a point down at the Vitality and get those 3 points and start building again.
Yeah, 100%. What's your score prediction before we wrap up? Do you think we'll win like you say we should?
Sorry to disappoint you, Harry. I don't like doing score predictions. Every time I do a score prediction, it turns out wrong. It jinxes it. We end up dropping points. But we need to win, and I think we're certainly capable of it. But they will give us a good game, that's for sure. I certainly don't think we're going to be seeing... I would expect an improved performance on Fulham, but I'm certainly not expecting us to go and do what we did to City either. I think it's going to be a very...
You think we'll win?
I don't know. You do not know with Spurs anymore, Harry, do you?
It's hard to predict.
We're probably the hardest team to predict in the league. I like that prediction from David. There could be lots of goals in the game.
4-2 Spurs he goes with.
Barney's gone 2-2, so I don't know. We have to win. We can't draw or lose.
I think there's goals in there. I'm not sure.
I would take a win by any margin. I don't care.
I think it might be a difficult week, but I'm completely wrong. I think you're totally right. I think 4 points next couple of games is achievable. There's no reason why we can't. Andrew look at it and go 3 games unbeaten, but we just need to start putting wins together for me now. But I think that wraps it up nicely for this week's episode of the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast. I want to thank James Black and Billie T, who were on earlier, who had to leave us. So do check them out on all socials. Also, a massive thanks to you, Josh. Where can people find you across social media?
At Josh Hughes TV on X. That's where I do all my football stuff. usually ranting about Spurs, after a game.
As you do.
But no, mainly on X. So give me a follow if you've enjoyed what you've heard and you want to interact and talk Spurs, even if you agree or disagree. I just love talking about Spurs, regardless.
Absolutely, don't we all? It's great to have you back on. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It's free to do so. It helps the channel grow. Turn the notifications bell on for Spurs England and Premier League content. We'll be back, as always, every Monday, 7:45 p.m. Next Monday, we'll be reviewing Chelsea and previewing whatever may be the upcoming game. I think it will be Rangers. So we'll be previewing that one. But if you are interested, Premier League podcast, as always, Wednesday night, 7:45 p.m. We'll be in the middle of a game week. So we'll look ahead to the game week at the weekend. I think it'll be 15 in the end. It's gone so quickly. A 15 preview. You may have noticed there's been a lot of changes at the channel recently as we go into a new year. We end off 2024. So on a personal note, thank you again for all the support you give me and the channel. We've got a new logo. Hopefully you're selling new merch again, new X banner, descriptions, you name it. And I'll be doing a little bit of work off air now as well, in improving the page, the podcast, to deliver the best possible quality content we can for you. But thank you very much for now. A massive come on you Spurs.